the past and the future. After indulging in the fleeting pleasures of beauty and youth, Kokila was now attempting to cleanse the stains of her tarnished life with tears. Memories of her past life would often torment her, leading her to cry out in despair and hopelessness, "Why was I even born in this world?" She tried to wash away the blemishes through charity and penance, squandering all the blessings of her youthful spring in this futile endeavor. But what brought about this awakening in her? Was it the blessing of a sage or the result of some ritual? No, it was the first glimpse of her newborn child that illuminated her barren lap, which had been empty for the past 15 years. As soon as she saw the baby's face, a faint, sorrowful, and melancholic smile flickered across her pale lips, but only for a moment. The smile vanished with a long sigh, replaced by a deep sense of loss. The feeble, tender cries of the infant turned the course of Kokila's life. The light of motherhood became a life message and a silent sermon for her. Kokila named the newborn girl Shraddha, a name that symbolized faith and devotion. It was Shraddha's birth that had rekindled her own faith. She didn't see Shraddha as her daughter but as an incarnation of a goddess. When her friends came to congratulate her, Kokila would hide the child from their gaze, unwilling to let their sinful eyes fall upon her. Shraddha had become her treasure, her soul, her beacon of life. Sometimes, holding Shraddha in her arms, Kokila would look at her with tear-filled eyes and wonder, will this pure light also fall prey to the relentless onslaughts of desire? Will all my efforts be in vain? Oh, is there no medicine that can erase the stains of birth? She would constantly pray to God that Shraddha would not get entangled in any thorns. She vowed to uphold the highest ideals of womanhood in her thoughts, words, and actions before Shraddha. 16 years passed, and the once innocent Shraddha had now become a proud, serene, and modest young woman, whose mere presence was enough to satiate the eyes. She was devoted to knowledge but detached from the world. The girls with whom she studied avoided speaking to her. The atmosphere of maternal affection had made her extremely proud. Given her isolation from friends, her intense study habits, and her immersion in books, it was no wonder that Shraddha developed a sense of superiority. She had no right to speak to anyone. The girls at her school, from respectable families, considered it an insult to associate with her. People on the street would point fingers and say, "She's the daughter of Kokila, the courtesan." Her head would bow, her cheeks would blush for a moment, and then turn as pale as lime. Shraddha loved solitude. She viewed marriage as divine punishment. If Kokila ever broached the topic of marriage, Shraddha's face would darken, her radiant red cheeks would turn ashen, and tears would flow from her eyes. Kokila would fall silent. Their life ideals were in conflict. Kokila was a worshipper of society's gods, while Shraddha despised society, God, and humanity. If there was anything she loved in this world, it was her books. Shraddha spent her life in the company of scholars, where there was no distinction between high and low, where caste and class had no place, where everyone had equal rights. The essence of Shraddha's nature can be captured in a verse by the great poet Rahim. Better to die with love, even if given poison. If someone had offered her poison with love, she would have accepted it with bowed head and embraced it to her heart. But nectar given with disrespect held no value in her eyes. One day, with tears in her eyes, Kokila asked Shraddha, "Munni, tell me the truth, don't you feel ashamed that you're my daughter? If you had been born into a noble family, would you still have these thoughts? You must curse me in your heart." Shraddha looked at her mother. Never before had she felt such reverence for her. In a trembling voice, she replied, "Mother, why do you ask me such a question? Have I ever disrespected you?" Kokila, overwhelmed with emotion, said, "No, my child. I always pray to the merciful God that every mother has a daughter as virtuous as you. But sometimes I feel that you must regret being my daughter." Shraddha, in a calm tone, replied, "Mother, your thoughts are baseless. I swear to you, the devotion and respect I have for you is unmatched. Being called your daughter is not a matter of shame but a matter of pride for me. A person is a slave to circumstances. The environment in which you grew up had its inevitable effects. But isn't it admirable to have emerged from the mire of sin? It's easy to steer a boat with the current, but the true sailor is the one who navigates against the tide." Kokila smiled and asked, "Then why do you recoil at the thought of marriage?" Shraddha, lowering her eyes, replied, Can't one live without marriage? I wish to remain unmarried. After leaving school, I will join college, and after 2 or 3 years, we can live independently. I can become a doctor, a lawyer. All paths are open to women now. Kokila hesitantly asked, why, don't you ever feel the desire to love someone? Shraddha sighed deeply and said, Mother, who in this world is without love? Love is the highest part of human life. If there is a place where God's divinity is evident, it is in love. When I find someone who does not consider it beneath him to accept me, I will worship him with all my heart, mind, and soul. But how can I beg for love? If someone marries me in a moment of fleeting passion, I will not be happy. It would be better if I abandon the idea of marriage altogether. Around this time, a women's assembly was organized. A large number of college students attended. The hall was packed to capacity. Shraddha, attending such a gathering for the first time, stood in the last row among the women. She found the whole affair rather theatrical. The proceedings began. After the president's speech, proposals were presented and speakers began to support them. But the women either forgot their speeches or were so intimidated by the formal setting that they lost their ability to speak. They would stammer out a few broken phrases and then sit down. The atmosphere of the gathering began to deteriorate. Some ladies approached the platform with great confidence but could barely utter 2 or 3 words. The young men seized the opportunity to mock them, and the hall resounded with laughter and applause. Shraddha, witnessing their rudeness, was infuriated. Every fiber of her being trembled. She ascended the platform and spoke with such authority that the gathering was silenced. The clamor subsided, and all eyes were fixed on her. Shraddha spoke like a heavenly maiden, her words flowing with freshness, vitality, and conviction. The fragrance of her youth filled the hall, leaving the audience spellbound. The assembly concluded, and people began to comment on the proceedings. Someone asked, who was that woman? Another replied, she's the daughter of Kokila, the courtesan. A third person remarked, that's why her voice and eloquence are so enchanting. It's pure magic, I tell you. Magic in every sense. Why wouldn't it be? Her mother was just as captivating. Ever since she left her profession, the city has lost its charm. It seems this girl will take her mother's place. A dark-skinned, curry-clad young man interjected, what a fine appreciation you've shown, sir, bravo. The same person retorted, why does it bother you? Do you have some vested interest? The young man, growing agitated, replied, aren't you ashamed to speak like this? The other person responded, what's shameful about it, sir? If a courtesan's daughter becomes a courtesan, what's surprising about that? The young man, in a voice filled with disdain, said, you might think so, but I disagree. A woman who speaks such thoughts is a goddess, not someone who sells her beauty. As Shraddha was leaving the assembly, these final words reached her ears. She paused, astonished and moved, and glanced at the young man with grateful eyes before hastily continuing on her way. But throughout her journey home, those words echoed in her mind. Until now, the only person who praised and encouraged her was her mother, Kokila, while the world around her was filled with disdain and contempt. Today, a stranger, a dark-skinned but noble-hearted young man, had spoken these words, and the image of his face kept dancing before her eyes. She wondered who he was and whether she would ever see him again. As she went to college, Shraddha would search for that young man with eager eyes. At home, she would often peek through the blinds, watching the passers-by, but he was nowhere to be found. A few days later, another women's assembly was announced. There were still 4 days left until the gathering, and Shraddha spent those days preparing her speech. She spent hours searching for the right words, reading and rereading each sentence, studying the speeches of great leaders, and trying to write in a similar style. When her speech was complete, Shraddha went to her room and practiced it aloud, addressing the chairs and tables as her audience. She had mastered all the techniques of oratory. The conclusion of her speech was so beautiful that she was enchanted by her own words. It was filled with music, attraction, and revolution. The day of the assembly arrived. Shraddha entered the hall with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The hall was packed, even more so than the previous time. As soon as the audience saw her, they greeted her with applause. There was a commotion, and everyone shouted in unison for her to begin her speech. Shraddha stepped onto the stage and cast a quick glance over the audience. The dark-skinned young man was standing in the last row, unable to find a seat. A flutter of excitement ran through her. She began her speech in a trembling voice. To her, the entire hall was filled with lifeless figures, except for that one young man standing at the back. Her gaze was fixed on him. She sought his approval for her speech, knowing that only a true connoisseur could appreciate a gem. For half an hour, words flowed like flowers from Shraddha's lips. The audience had rarely heard such an eloquent speech. When the assembly ended and Shraddha left for home, she noticed the young man walking quickly behind her. She knew that people had appreciated her speech, but she hadn't had the chance to hear his opinion. She slowed her pace, and the next moment, the young man caught up with her. They walked in silence for a few moments. Finally, the young man hesitantly said, "You were incredible today." Suppressing her delight, Shraddha replied, "Thank you. It's your kindness." The young man said, "I am not worthy." Not just me, but the entire assembly was in awe. Shraddha asked, "Do you live here?" The young man replied, "Yes, I am studying for my MA here." This obsession with caste and class, I wonder how long it will continue to plague us. Unfortunately, I am also one of those people whom society considers lowly. I belong to the Chamar caste. My father was an orderly for a school inspector. It was through his recommendation that I got into school, and since then, I've been struggling against my fate. Initially, the teachers wouldn't even touch me. Things are better now, but the boys still keep their distance. Shraddha said, "I believe nobility is determined not by birth but by character." The young man replied, "Your speech made that clear, and it gave me the courage to speak to you. Otherwise, how could I dare?" Shraddha lowered her eyes and said, "Perhaps you don't know my story." The young man replied, "Oh, I know it very well. I would be honored to meet your mother." Shraddha said, "She would be delighted to meet you. What's your name?" "My name is Bhagat Ram," he replied. This acquaintance gradually deepened, and their friendship grew stronger. In Shraddha's eyes, Bhagat Ram was a deity, and in Bhagat Ram's eyes, Shraddha was a goddess in human form. A year passed. Bhagat Ram would visit the goddess regularly. They would sit and talk for hours. If Shraddha was scheduled to speak, Bhagat Ram would drop everything to listen. Their aspirations were the same, their ideals of life aligned, their interests and thoughts were one. Bhagat Ram now delved into the mysteries of love and spoke of them with poetic beauty. He had become an expert in conveying emotions. But just when Shraddha's heart would begin to flutter, and her cheeks would flush with joy, Bhagat Ram would change the subject and soon find an excuse to leave. After he left, Shraddha would weep with longing and wonder if he truly loved her. One day, Kokila called Bhagat Ram aside and said, "Son, it would be good if you married Muni now. Life is uncertain. If I die, this desire will remain unfulfilled." Bhagat Ram shook his head and replied, "Mother, let me pass this exam first. Marriage is only appropriate once one's livelihood is secure. This is all yours. Do you think I will take it with me when I go? This is your kindness, mother, but don't make me so shameless. I belong to you now, and even if you scold me, I won't leave this door. Who in this world is as fortunate as I am? But before entering the goddess's temple, one should at least bring some offerings." Another year passed. Bhagat Ram completed his MA and became an economics teacher at his own college. On that day, Kokila gave generously to charity. When Bhagat Ram came and bowed at her feet, she embraced him. She was certain that today Bhagat Ram would finally bring up the subject of marriage. Shraddha, too, was a picture of anticipation, every fiber of her being resonating with excitement. Her heart was intoxicated, her feet barely touched the ground. As soon as she saw Bhagat Ram, she said to her mother, "Mother, now please buy us a small car." Kokila smiled and replied, "Why small? Get a big one. But first, find a good house." Shraddha took Bhagat Ram to her room, and they began to plan the decoration of their new home. Curtains, carpets, paintings, everything was arranged. Shraddha said, "We can ask mother for the money." Bhagat Ram replied, "I would be embarrassed to take money from her." Shraddha smiled and said, "But she will give it as part of my dowry." They talked for hours, but the words Shraddha longed to hear never came from Bhagat Ram's lips, and he left without proposing. After he left, Kokila asked hesitantly, "What did you two talk about today?" Shraddha, understanding her mother's concern, said, "If I'm such a burden, why don't you just throw me into a well?" As she said this, the wall of her patience crumbled. The emotion and pain that had been simmering inside her burst forth, and she began to weep uncontrollably. Kokila, frustrated, said, "If he doesn't intend to talk about it, why does he keep coming? It's not as if he belongs to a noble family or is a wealthy magnate." Shraddha wiped her tears and said, "Mother, please don't say anything to him in my presence. I know what's in his heart. He may not say it with words, but he has already spoken with his heart. And even if I haven't heard anything with my ears, I've heard everything with my heart." Kokila said nothing to Shraddha, but the next day she asked Bhagat Ram, "What are your thoughts now, son?" Bhagat Ram scratched his head and said, "Mother, I'm ready, but my family won't agree. I'll go home when I have some time and convince them. It's not right to upset my parents." Kokila couldn't respond. Bhagat Ram's parents lived far away. He was their only child, and all their hopes were pinned on his marriage. They had tried to arrange his marriage several times, but Bhagat Ram always delayed it, saying that he wouldn't marry until he had a job. Now that he had a job, they arrived at his house one cold morning in the month of Magh, laden with gifts. Bhagat Ram rushed to touch their feet and after asking about their well-being, said, "Why did you trouble yourselves in this cold? You could have just called me." Chaudhry, his father, looked at his wife and said, "Did you hear that, mother? When we call him, he says he has exams, or this or that. Now that we're here, he says we should have called him. Your marriage is fixed. You'll have to take a month's leave and come with us. That's why we both came." Chaudhry's wife added, "We thought it wouldn't work without coming ourselves, so put in your leave request today. The girl is beautiful, educated, and from a good family." Bhagat Ram, embarrassed, said, "I've already arranged to marry someone here, if you agree." Chaudhry asked, "Who from our caste lives in this city, mother?" Chaudhry's wife said, "No one from our caste lives here." Bhagat Ram replied, "There's a mother and daughter. They have money, and the girl is so beautiful that you'll be pleased to see her. The marriage will be free of cost." Chaudhry asked, "Has the girl's father died? What was his name? Where was he from? What's his background? We can't proceed until we know all this, can we, mother?" Chaudhry's wife agreed, "Yes, we need to know all that first." Bhagat Ram didn't reply. Chaudhry asked, "Which neighborhood do they live in? We've been all over the city. We must have lived here for about 20 years, right, mother?" Chaudhry's wife said, "More than 20 years." Bhagat Ram said, "They live in Nakhas." Chaudhry asked, "Which side of Nakhas?" Bhagat Ram said, "Their house is the first one in the lane opposite Nakhas, visible from the street." Chaudhry asked, "Isn't that Kokila, the courtesan's house? The one painted in pink?" Bhagat Ram, embarrassed, said, "Yes, that's the house." Chaudhry asked, "So, are you planning to marry Kokila's daughter? Do you want to bring disgrace upon us? No one in our caste will even drink water with you." Chaudhry's wife added, "Are you so captivated by her looks? Don't you dare." Bhagat Ram replied, "I consider it my good fortune that she's willing to marry her daughter to me. If she wanted, she could marry her daughter into a wealthy family." Chaudhry replied, "A wealthy man won't marry her, he'll keep her as a mistress." "God help you, you can keep one, or four if you like. No one stops a man. But if you call it marriage, it's only marriage if it's within the caste." Chaudhry's wife said, "Too much education drives a man mad." Chaudhry said, "I'm an uneducated man, but I can't understand how you got this idea. A courtesan's daughter, no matter how beautiful, is still a courtesan's daughter. We won't let this marriage happen. If you marry her, we'll end our lives. Make sure you understand that, right, mother?" Chaudhry's wife said, "Yes, let him stay unmarried if he wants, but he won't marry into a courtesan's family." Bhagat Ram, now frustrated, said, "Why do you keep calling her a courtesan? Maybe that was her profession once, but she now lives a life of purity. I've never seen such virtuous conduct." All of Bhagat Ram's efforts were in vain. His mother was so stubborn that she refused to budge. That night, when Bhagat Ram arrived at his temple of love, his face was downcast. Every part of him exuded despair. Shraddha had been anxiously waiting, wondering why he was so late. Didn't he realize what turmoil she was going through? Once he was done with his friends, he would come by, almost as an afterthought. Kokila said, "I've already told you that they are no longer interested, but you wouldn't listen. There's a limit to how much one can delay." Shraddha, disheartened, replied, "Mother, I've told you 1,000 times that I may remain unmarried in the eyes of the world, but in my heart, I'm already his wife. If a man like him can't be trusted, then I don't know who can be." At that moment, Bhagat Ram, the embodiment of despair, entered the room. Both women looked at him. Kokila's eyes were full of reproach, while Shraddha's were filled with pain. Kokila's eyes seemed to say, "Is this how you behave?" while Shraddha's eyes asked, "How can you be so cruel?" In a low, sorrowful voice, Bhagat Ram said, "I'm sorry for keeping you waiting so long. But I was helpless, my parents have arrived, and I was talking to them." Kokila asked, "Is everything well at home?" Bhagat Ram, with his head bowed, replied, "Yes, everything is fine. The issue of my marriage came up. They're old-fashioned and won't agree." Kokila's face flushed with anger. She said, "Of course, why would they agree? We're beneath them, aren't we? But if you were so bound to their wishes, you should have sought their approval before coming here. What did you gain by humiliating us? If I had known you were so enslaved by your parents, this situation wouldn't have arisen." Shraddha saw tears falling from Bhagat Ram's eyes. With a gentle tone, she said, "Mother, it's not a sin to be bound by one's parents' wishes. Wouldn't you be hurt if I disregarded your wishes? The same applies to them." Saying this, Shraddha walked toward her room and signaled Bhagat Ram to follow. In the room, they sat in silence for several minutes, both staring at the ground. Neither had the courage to break the silence. Finally, Bhagat Ram mustered the strength to speak and said, "Shraddha, there's a tumultuous battle raging in my heart right now. I can't even begin to describe my feelings. I want to end my life with poison. I can't live without you, I can only suffer." I pleaded with them, cried, and begged, but they remained steadfast in their decision. They kept saying that if I married you, they would end their lives. They're willing to accept my death, but not you as the queen of my heart. Shraddha, offering comfort, said, "My love, it's understandable that they hate me. Even among educated people, how many would think differently? It's not their fault. I'll visit them tomorrow morning. Perhaps seeing me will soften their hearts. I'll do everything to serve them. I'll wash their clothes, massage their feet, I'll do everything that an ideal daughter-in-law would do. There's no shame in that. I'll massage their feet, sing hymns to them, I know many rural songs. I don't want pity, I'm a servant of love. I'll do anything for you. Anything." Bhagat Ram felt as though a new light had entered his body, as if a second, luminous soul had filled his being. All his love, faith, and devotion seemed to pour out from his eyes, reaching out to touch Shraddha's feet, like little children with rosy cheeks and curly hair running out of a house, laughing and playing. 2 weeks had passed since Chaudhary and his wife had arrived in the city. They prepared to leave every day, but then decided to stay. Shraddha wouldn't let them leave. Every morning, when they awoke, they found Shraddha heating water for their bath. Chaudhary's hookah was always filled. As soon as they finished bathing, Shraddha would begin ironing their clothes. They were astonished by her service and tireless efforts. Chaudhary had never seen such a beautiful, sweet-spoken, cheerful, and intelligent woman, not even in the inspector's house. To Chaudhary, she seemed like a goddess, and to his wife, like Lakshmi. They marveled at her service, her devotion, and her love, yet the question of stigma and caste kept them from speaking. On the 15th night, when Shraddha returned home at 10 o'clock, Chaudhary said to his wife, "The girl is truly a goddess." His wife replied, "When she irons my sari, I feel so ashamed. A servant in our house would be like her." Chaudhary said, "Then what do you suggest? We won't find such a perfect girl in our caste." His wife replied, "Take Lord Ram's name and get married. At worst, people might stop eating with us. But 5 out of 20 will still eat with us. How much does a meal cost anyway? It's not like it costs a fortune. We were worried at first that a courtesan's daughter might be questionable, but now all doubts have been dispelled. Chaudhry said, when she speaks, it's as if flowers fall from her lips. His wife replied, I praise her mother, who gave birth to such a Lakshmi. Chaudhry said, let's go tomorrow and finalize everything with Kokila. His wife replied, I'm embarrassed to go to their house. She'll be sitting like a queen, and I'll look like her servant. Chaudhry said, then put some powder on your face and you'll look fair. Even the inspector's wife used to wear powder every day. She was dark-skinned, but when she put on powder, her face would shine. His wife replied, if you joke, I'll curse you. Powder doesn't work on dark skin. You'll look like a watchman. Chaudhry said, so let's go early in the morning. If Shraddha sees us, she won't let us leave. We'll tell our son to arrange for the priest and the auspicious date. They'll probably want to hurry it along. His wife, reminiscing about the old days, smiled. With the approval of Chaudhry and his wife, Kokila began making wedding preparations. Clothes were ordered, shops were scoured for utensils, and orders were placed with jewelers for ornaments. But for some reason, there was no sign of joy on Bhagat Ram's face. He continued his visits to Shraddha's house as usual, but he sat there, lost and despondent. He spent hours in a state of self-forgetfulness, staring blankly at the sky or the ground. Shraddha would show him her expensive clothes and jewelry, her entire being brimming with excitement. In her intoxication, she failed to notice the tears hidden in Bhagat Ram's eyes. Meanwhile, Chaudhry was also making preparations. He frequently visited the city, buying wedding supplies. Bhagat Ram's progressive friends envied his fortune. Who else is blessed with a beautiful wife like an Apsara and a treasure of wealth like Karun's? But the one who was the cause of his friends' envy, Kokila's joy, Shraddha's dreams, and Chaudhry and his wife's happiness, was secretly weeping, discontented with his life. There was darkness under the lamp. No one was aware of the storm raging within his heart. As the wedding day approached, Bhagat Ram's feigned enthusiasm waned. With only 4 days remaining, he fell ill with a mild fever and couldn't visit Shraddha's house. Chaudhry, his wife, and other relatives had arrived, but they were so engrossed in the wedding preparations that no one noticed his absence. The next day, he still didn't leave the house. Shraddha assumed that he was busy with wedding rituals. On the third day, when Chaudhry's wife went to call Bhagat Ram, she found him backing away in fear, his eyes wide with terror, his hands outstretched as if warding off an attack. Frightened, she asked, Son, how are you feeling? Why are you backing away like this? There's no one here. Bhagat Ram's face was blank, like that of a madman. His eyes were filled with fear. In a trembling voice, he said, No, mother, look, Shraddha is coming. See, she has 2 black snakes in her hands. She wants to bite me with them. Oh, mother, she's getting closer. Shraddha? Shraddha! Why have you become my enemy? Is this the result of my boundless love? I was always ready to sacrifice myself at your feet. What is the value of this life? Throw those snakes away. I'll lay down at your feet and offer you my life. You won't listen. With that, he collapsed. Chaudhry's wife quickly called Chaudhry. Together, they lifted Bhagat Ram onto the bed. Chaudhry thought it was a case of possession and immediately began making preparations to ward off the evil spirit with cloves and ash. He was well versed in such rituals. Bhagat Ram's entire body was cold, but his head was burning like a hot iron plate. Throughout the night, Bhagat Ram woke up several times in a state of shock. Each time, Chaudhry would recite his mantras to drive away the evil spirit. His wife suggested, why don't we call a doctor? Maybe medicine will help. The wedding is tomorrow, and today he's in this state. Chaudhry, unperturbed, replied, what can a doctor do? Only the people Baba can help. Medicine would only make things worse. Let the night pass. In the morning, we'll offer a goat and a bottle of liquor to the spirit. That's all that needs to be done. A doctor treats illnesses, not evil spirits. He's not sick, the gods are angry because he's marrying outside the caste. In the morning, Chaudhry ordered a goat. The women sang and danced as they headed to the temple. When they returned, they found Bhagat Ram's condition had worsened. His pulse was gradually weakening. His face bore the mark of death, with tears streaming down his cheeks, as if his unfulfilled desires were sending a final message to the heartless world. It was a scene of immense sorrow, the last 2 drops of tears. Now Chaudhary panicked. He immediately sent word to Kokila and dispatched someone to fetch the doctor. The doctor was a friend of Bhagat Ram's, but Kokila and Shraddha arrived with the messenger. Shraddha stood by Bhagat Ram's side, tears streaming down her face. After a while, Bhagat Ram opened his eyes and, looking at Shraddha, said, "You've come, Shraddha. I was waiting for you. Take this last kiss. Today, all the past and future will come to an end, which began 3 years ago. In these 3 years, I've endured such torment that only my heart knows. You are the goddess of fidelity, but I was constantly plagued by doubts. Could you overcome the influence of blood? Could you abandon your ancestral traditions? Could you break the natural laws of birth? Don't mourn for these delusional thoughts. I was never worthy of you in any way, and I never could be as great-hearted as you. Yes, under the influence of these doubts, I am leaving this world with my desires unfulfilled. The memory of your boundless, sincere, and pure love will always remain with me. But oh, how I regret." As he spoke, Bhagat Ram's eyes closed again. A deep red flush spread across Shraddha's face. Her tears dried up. Her bowed head straightened, her forehead furrowed, and her eyes gleamed with self-pride. She stood there for a moment and then quickly descended the stairs, got into her carriage, and left. Kokila ran after her and said, "Daughter, this is not the time for anger. What will people say? His condition is worsening. Your presence will give the old folks some comfort." Shraddha didn't reply. She simply told the coachman, "Take me home." Saying this, Kokila also got into the carriage. The cold was unbearable. The sky was overcast with dark clouds, and a chilly wind was blowing. It was the last days of Magh. The trees, plants, and shrubs were stiff with cold. Although it was 8 o'clock in the morning, people were still wrapped up in their quilts. But Shraddha's body was drenched in sweat, as if all the heat of the sun had entered her veins. Her lips were dry, not from thirst but from the inner flames burning within her. Every part of her body was being scorched by this fierce heat. She was exhaling hot, fiery breaths as if flames were escaping from an oven. By the time they reached home, her once radiant face had become pale, her lips turning yellow as if bitten by a black snake. Kokila kept glancing at her with tearful eyes, but she didn't know what to say or how to console her. Upon arriving home, Shraddha headed toward her upstairs room, but she was so weak that she could barely climb the stairs. Clutching the railing tightly, she somehow made her way to her room. Only half an hour earlier, every object in this room had been marked with happiness, joy, and hope, but now everything seemed to be mourning. Large trunks filled with wedding clothes were neatly arranged, and seeing them, Shraddha's heart ached, and she collapsed like a frolicking deer struck by an arrow. Suddenly, her eyes fell on the portrait that had been the foundation of her life for the past 3 years. How many times had she kissed that portrait, embraced it, and held it close to her heart? All those moments came flooding back, but she no longer had the right to remember them. A pain arose within her heart, more agonizing than ever before, more tumultuous than a storm. Oh, how much suffering she had inflicted on the dying heart! The doubt in Bhagat Ram's mind had been met with such a heart-wrenching and devastating response. Oh, how had she become so cruel? Her beloved was dying before her eyes, and she hadn't uttered a single word of comfort. This was the influence of blood, nothing else could explain it. For the first time, Shraddha regretted being Kokila's daughter. She realized how selfish and heartless she had become. The sacrifice, the service, the high ideals she had once taken pride in had all crumbled before her, and she began to despise herself. What other answer could the daughter of a courtesan give to such an expression of heavenly love than one filled with despair? Shraddha immediately left the room, rushed down the stairs with the speed of the wind, and ran toward Bhagat Ram's house. She wanted to embrace him one last time, to see him one last time. She would fulfill the difficult bond of eternal love and remain his until her last breath. She found no vehicle on the way. Shraddha was growing weary, drenched in sweat from head to toe. How many times she stumbled and fell, only to get up and continue running. Her knees were bleeding, her sari was torn in several places, but she paid no attention to her body. Every fiber of her being was hoarsely praying to God that the flame of that morning lamp would burn a little longer. Her soul was desperate to hear him say her name one more time. Hearing that one word would make all her desires come true, all her dreams fulfilled. As soon as Chaudhry's wife saw Shraddha, she took her hand and, crying, said, "Daughter, where did you go? He called your name twice." Shraddha felt as if her heart was being torn apart. Her eyes glazed over. It felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless whirlpool in an infinite ocean. As soon as she entered the room, she placed her head on Bhagat Ram's cold feet and tried to warm them with her tears. This was the final resting place for all her hopes and dreams. Bhagat Ram opened his eyes and said, "Is that you, Shraddha? I knew you would come, that's why I held on to life. Just rest your head on my heart. Yes, now I believe you've forgiven me. My heart is sinking. I want to ask you for something, but how can I? I couldn't ask while I was alive, so what now? Our last moments are always filled with some unfulfilled desire. Death first destroys all our jealousy, all our differences, all our enmity. We become eager to embrace those we once hated. What remains is only the desire for what we could have done but didn't." Bhagat Ram, in a broken, sorrowful voice, recounted his love for Shraddha. He had obtained that heavenly treasure, could have enjoyed it, but alas, he was now leaving, with memories of unfulfilled desires. Oh, cursed desires! Shraddha, leaning on Bhagat Ram's chest, wept. Bhagat Ram lifted his head and kissed her wilted, tear-soaked, yet pure cheeks. It was the last smile of his dying desire. In a choked voice, Bhagat Ram said, "This is our wedding, Shraddha. This is my final gift to you." With these words, his eyes closed forever, and his desire died with him. Shraddha's eyes were red from crying. She felt as if Bhagat Ram was standing before her, smiling, beckoning her to embrace him. She forgot her situation, time, and place. A wounded soldier, upon hearing news of victory, forgets his pain and suffering. For a moment, even death becomes insignificant. Shraddha felt the same way. She was ready to sacrifice her life on the cruel altar of love, where not just Lala and Majnu or Shirin and Fahad, but thousands had laid down their lives. She responded to his kiss and said, "My love, I am yours, and I will always be yours."